Rain lashed against the wide glass panes of the Bennett Lake house, the kind of storm that swallowed sound. Inside, the dim hallway smelled of cedar and spilled wine. A single lamp flickered, throwing broken light across the staircase where Claire Bennett lay motionless, one hand outstretched, palm bloodied, eyes half open as if caught between shock and disbelief. Daniel stood above her, frozen. For a moment, there was only the sound of thunder, deep, rolling, merciless. Then his voice cracked through the silence. "Claire?" His knees buckled as he stumbled down, touching her wrist. Cold, too cold. He fumbled for his phone, breath shallow, shaking fingers dialing 3 numbers. 911. What's your emergency? My wife, she fell, he gasped, forcing panic into his tone. She's not breathing. Oh God, please. The operator's voice was calm. Sir, I need you to stay on the line. Is she conscious? No, she's not. She's bleeding. I just found her like this. Lightning flashed, illuminating the staircase. The blood trail on the steps was faint but wrong. Too evenly smeared, as if placed, not spilled. Daniel's eyes darted toward it before he turned away, clutching the phone tighter. Help is on the way, the voice repeated. He hung up before she finished speaking. Then he sank beside Claire's body, whispering words meant for someone who couldn't hear. I just wanted you to listen. His breathing slowed, controlled now. The mask slipped back on. He straightened her dress, wiped his hands with the hem, and sat at the base of the stairs, practicing the right expression: grief, disbelief, horror. Outside, the sirens began to pierce through the storm. Daniel glanced at the door, then back at Claire. It was an accident, he murmured as though convincing himself. A flash of red lights filled the window. Somewhere beneath the hum of rain, a single floorboard creaked upstairs, faint, deliberate, like a witness taking a breath. Rain still whispered against the windows when Detective Lena Ruiz stepped into the Bennett Lake house. The storm had eased, but the air remained thick with electricity, and the kind of silence that follows chaos. Paramedics were gone, leaving only a dark stain on the rug and the echo of whispered condolences. Daniel sat at the kitchen table, head bowed, fingers interlaced so tightly they'd turned white. He looked like a man trying to hold himself together, but his stillness was too measured, too deliberate. Lena set her notebook down. Mr. Bennett, I'm sorry for your loss. I just need to understand what happened tonight. He nodded quickly. Claire, she was coming down the stairs. I heard her fall. I ran out of the study, but it was too late. His voice cracked in the right places, his eyes glossy but dry. She'd seen grief before. This wasn't it. Where were you before the fall? She asked. In my office, working. She opened a bottle of wine earlier. Maybe she slipped. Lena's gaze drifted to the half-empty glass near the sink. No lipstick marks. Was anyone else here? No, just us. He answered every question with precision, as if rehearsed. Not recalling, but reciting. Lena noted it quietly, the tip of her pen scratching the page. Description sharpened in her mind. The staircase's smooth wood, no visible cracks, no broken step. Yet a faint pattern of blood speckles climbed higher than a fall could explain. She followed it with her eyes, up toward the second landing, where the shape of something wiped clean glimmered faintly beneath the lamplight. Do you mind if we take photos? She asked. Daniel nodded again, still looking anywhere but at his wife's blood. When she closed her notebook, his relief was visible. A tiny exhale as if the hardest part were over. But as Lena turned to leave, her eyes caught one last detail. A faint indentation on the banister. Shaped like fingers pressing down, she paused, the seed of doubt already sprouting. Morning light poured weakly through the rain-streaked windows, softening the chaos left behind. Detective Ruiz stood outside the house watching the reflection of her own face in the glass, and behind it, the framed photos lining the Bennett's hallway. Smiling faces, matching sweaters, beach sunsets, a marriage that on the surface looked untouchable. Narration carried the scene backward, into the illusion of their life. 2 years earlier, Claire and Daniel were the couple everyone envied. She, a rising marketing executive known for her charm and clarity. He, a once successful architect whose lake house designs had graced glossy magazines. Together, they hosted dinner parties that smelled of rosemary and expensive wine, their laughter echoing across the deck as guests toasted to love and ambition. But even then, cracks had begun to form. "Not everything's about work, Claire," Daniel had once said, his tone calm but eyes sharp. "It's about survival," she replied. "You know how unstable your clients have been." "We need security." His reply came with a thin smile. "We right." The air between them cooled that night, a quiet, unspoken fracture. In the months that followed, Daniel's projects slowed and his confidence thinned. Claire's promotions, meanwhile, came faster than either expected. She bought him cufflinks engraved with his initials. He thanked her, then left them unopened in a drawer. Cinematic description cut to the present. Lena flipping through a framed photo she'd found overturned on a side table. Daniel's arm around Claire's waist, both beaming, but her smile reached her eyes. His didn't. Neighbors would later describe them as perfect. No fights heard, no police calls, no visible tension. But perfect couples don't usually live on eggshells. Lena noted it in her file. Controlled harmony, public laughter, private silence. As she closed her notebook, her radio crackled. Forensics was ready to share initial findings from the scene. Blood distribution inconsistencies? No evidence of a slip. A second wine glass wiped clean. Lena glanced back at the photo before stepping outside. "The perfect couple," she murmured, the irony sharp in her voice. The storm had passed, but the air still carried weight, like a story pretending to be finished. The hum of the forensic lab replaced the rain's rhythm. Detective Lena Ruiz stood by the glass partition, watching technicians in white suits move with surgical precision. The Bennett's lake house now existed here in fragments. A staircase sample sealed in plastic, photographs spread across a light board, and a single bag labeled victim, Claire Bennett. Dr. Patel, head of forensics, glanced up as Lena entered. "You'll want to see this." Narration took over, steady and clinical, cutting through the emotional fog. The bruising on Claire's body told a story her husband hadn't. The pattern along her forearms wasn't from a fall. It was defensive, consistent with blocking blows. Small crescent-shaped marks lined her wrist, skin broken where fingers had gripped too tightly. "She fought," Lena whispered. Patel nodded, and lost. He flipped to another image, a close-up of Claire's palm. These abrasions came from wood grain, but not from the stairs. From the banister, higher up. She grabbed on hard. Lena frowned. Trying to steady herself? Or trying to stop someone from pushing her? The air thickened. Patel continued. "We also swabbed the railing. No trace of her DNA. Someone cleaned it." Daniel's calm, careful answers from the interview replayed in Lena's mind. His refusal to meet her eyes. The faint indentation of fingers she'd noticed on the banister. She leaned over the table. "What about the blood spatter?" Patel slid over another image. Droplets angled upward. Backspray pattern. "That's not from a fall. That's impact." A cold realization tightened Lena's chest. He struck her before she fell. Patel hesitated. "There's one more thing. The body temperature drop. She'd been dead longer than the call timestamp suggests. Around 40 minutes earlier." Lena stared at the evidence, the polished clarity of truth cutting through the narrative Daniel built. It wasn't just an accident. It was choreography. Rehearsed panic, selective memory, and the performance of grief. She closed the file slowly. "Bring him back in," she said. "Let's see if his story still holds." Outside, daylight faded into a gray, indifferent sky. Somewhere across town, Daniel Bennett rehearsed his innocence again, unaware that science had already spoken. The digital forensics lab smelled faintly of ozone and coffee, the scent of sleepless nights and buried truths. Detective Lena Ruiz watched as the technician mirrored Claire Bennett's phone onto the monitor. The screen flickered, then stabilized into a list of restored messages. Fragments of fear dressed as casual conversation. Narration carried the weight of what surfaced. The earliest deleted thread was from 3 weeks before Claire's death. "Claire, he's changing again. The way he looks at me when I talk about work, it's like he's waiting for me to fail. Harper, you said it was better lately." "Claire, it was. Until I told him I might take the promotion in Chicago. He said we'd talk after my conference. I don't think I'll come back." Lena's jaw tightened. The words told a story more honest than any statement Daniel had given. Fear threaded through every line. Cautious, deliberate, like someone writing under surveillance. Later messages darkened. Mentions of arguments, missing money, and Daniel's plans for the business. Then one chilling entry, time-stamped 3 days before the fall. Claire, he said I owe him everything. That leaving would ruin us both. I recorded him once. Just in case, Lena paused. Did we find that recording? The technician shook his head. Not yet. Might have been on her laptop, but it's password protected. Hours later, Lena met Harper in a dim coffee shop near the city. Harper's hands trembled around her mug as she spoke. Claire said he tracked her spending. Every credit card, every account. He made it sound like protection, like love, but she said it felt like a leash. The confession lingered between them, heavy and unspoken. Did she ever say she was afraid for her life? Lena asked quietly. Harper looked down. She didn't have to. Outside, rain began again, thin, deliberate, like memory refusing to fade. Lena left the cafe with a single thought echoing in her mind. If Claire recorded him, that file might be the only voice she has left. Detective Lena Ruiz stared at the muted security footage looping on the monitor. Daniel Bennett at a gas station, 11:43 p.m., the night Claire died. He was calm, alone, filling his car with precision. The timestamp glared like a confession. He'd claimed to be home by 10. She replayed it again. Same movements, same detached expression. No panic, no rush, just control. When Daniel entered the interrogation room, he looked polished. Pressed shirt, eyes clear. Grief had become presentation. Lena didn't look up from her file as she began. You said you were home working after 10. Yes, he replied smoothly. I told you before. I was reviewing plans. She slid a photo across the table, the gas station still frame. Then who's this? A flicker crossed his face, the first crack. I went out to clear my head. I forgot. Forgot? Lena repeated, voice soft but sharp. Your wife was dead less than an hour later. That's a hard thing to forget, he swallowed. You're twisting this. I panicked, that's all. Narration deepened the tension. His pulse thudded in his neck, the rhythm betraying the calm his words fought to maintain. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, steady and merciless. Lena opened another folder. Photographs of his wristwatch. We found traces of Claire's blood under the band. You tried to clean it, but not well enough. Daniel leaned back, his expression closing like a door. She fell, Detective. If I touched her, of course. She didn't fall, Lena interrupted. She grabbed the banister. Tried to fight back. A silence heavier than accusation filled the room. Finally, she placed a printout in front of him. Claire's recovered message. The last one she ever sent. If anything happens to me, it wasn't an accident. His jaw tightened, the performance slipping. People say dramatic things when they're upset. Or when they're scared, Lena countered. For a heartbeat, his mask fractured, the faint tremor of a man realizing the walls were closing in. Then he smiled, small and cold. You have no proof. Lena gathered the papers slowly. Not yet, she said, standing. But truth has a way of surfacing. As she left, Daniel's reflection in the glass watched her go. Steady. Breathable. The morning light bled through the blinds of Lena's office as she sifted through financial reports. Bank statements, company filings, insurance documents. All lines of ink that whispered motive. Her pen stopped on one detail. A $2 million life insurance policy signed by both Daniel and Claire Bennett. Date of activation, 3 weeks before her death. She leaned back, exhaling slowly. Too soon to die, she murmured. Narration traced the connections. Daniel's architecture firm, once lucrative, had been quietly collapsing. 2 major clients had withdrawn within months. He'd mortgaged the lake house twice, taken personal loans hidden under corporate accounts, and funneled money through his wife's name. The policy wasn't protection. It was a parachute. Lena turned to her computer, pulling up an email thread between Daniel and the insurance broker. The subject line read, urgent, expedited approval. His tone in the message was polite but insistent. Efficient, just like his 911 call. She met the broker later that afternoon. The man shifted uneasily when she showed her badge. He said Claire wanted it. Said she worried about the business and wanted peace of mind. Did she contact you directly? No, he admitted. Only him. Outside, Lena stood in the parking lot, the autumn air biting. The pieces fit too neatly. Financial ruin, desperate man, perfect accident. Yet something still bothered her. The precision. Daniel wasn't impulsive. He was deliberate. She replayed his expression from the interrogation room. Not the panic of guilt, but the calm of someone convinced he was justified. That chilled her more than any evidence could. Back at her desk, she highlighted a line from Claire's deleted messages. He said we'd both be free if I stopped fighting him. Lena whispered, "Free from what?" Her phone buzzed. A message from Digital Forensics. "We cracked the laptop. You'll want to hear what's inside." Lena grabbed her coat, heart tightening. Greed might have started it, but something darker was waiting beneath. The crack of rain against the window returned, but this time it wasn't present day. It was memory, Claire's memory. Her words surfaced in her journal, the handwriting graceful but tense. January 12th. I keep thinking about the fire. He never talks about it, but sometimes in his sleep he does. A name I don't know. A woman screaming. Narration softened into her world. The lake house still knew, her laughter echoing in empty rooms, believing she'd built a life on love, not lies. Daniel had been charming then, the kind of man who made small things feel grand. But that charm had weight. It filled every silence, every decision, until she wasn't sure which thoughts were hers anymore. February 3rd. He says I remind him of her. The one from before, the one who died in an accident. I asked how, and he smiled. Not kindly, just smiled. The words blurred where a teardrop had fallen. Flashbacks played like film. Daniel standing behind her, hands on her shoulders, whispering that he couldn't live without her. His grip tightening when she moved. His apologies the next morning. Practiced perfect. Claire began to notice small things. Missing receipts. Late-night calls. The smell of smoke clinging to one of his jackets. March 2nd. I searched her name today. Emily Ray. Found a newspaper clipping. House fire claims young architect's fiancé. No foul play suspected. The photo he's in it. Smiling. She had started collecting quietly. Bank statements copied to a hidden drive. Photos of documents. Voice memos of their arguments. Not out of vengeance, but preservation. If she ever disappeared, she wanted the truth to outlive her. April 18th. I think he knows I've been looking. He's watching me again. Every question feels like a test. I can't breathe here anymore. The last entry was short, a single sentence scrawled in haste. April 21st. I'm going to record everything, just in case. Back in the present, Lena scrolled through the digitized pages. The final line echoing through her mind like a warning. Claire hadn't just feared Daniel. She'd predicted him, and somewhere in that lake house, the proof she died trying to leave was still waiting to be found. The envelope was plain, unmarked, and trembling slightly in Harper's hands when she placed it on Lena's desk. Claire told me to give this to you if anything ever happened. Her voice was barely above a whisper. Lena slid the contents out, a small silver drive, its surface scratched from being hidden somewhere that wasn't meant to be found. Where was it? In the lining of her camera bag, Harper said. She loved that thing. He never touched it. Narration deepened the moment as Lena connected the drive to her laptop. The screen flickered, asking for a password. Harper frowned, then smiled faintly. Try her cat's name. She always said it was the one thing Daniel didn't know. It worked. The files unfolded like a confession. Spreadsheets of transfers between Daniel's accounts and Claire's business card. Emails requesting temporary use of funds. All signed in Claire's digital signature. He hadn't just betrayed her trust. He'd buried his fraud in her name. Lena's pulse quickened. He was laundering through her identity, she said quietly. If she went to the police, he'd lose everything. Then she saw it, a folder labeled Home Audio 0421. One file. 23 minutes long, she pressed play. Claire's voice came first, soft but steady. You said this was temporary. That it would help us. Daniel's voice, lower, coiled with anger. It is helping us. You'd rather see me humiliated? Everything I built, you'd destroy that. You're destroying it yourself. A crash followed, glass maybe. Then silence. Heavy breathing. Stop recording me, Daniel hissed. Claire's reply trembled. If you touch me again, I'll go to the police. The audio ended abruptly, replaced by static. Harper covered her mouth, tears gathering. Lena sat frozen, every instinct screaming what came next. "Get this to evidence," she said finally. Her voice was calm, but her hand trembled. He didn't just lose control. He planned this. Outside the window, thunder rolled again. Echoing the night, Claire's voice had been silenced. The interrogation room was colder this time. The hum of the fluorescent light above seemed louder, harsher, as if it too demanded truth. Daniel Bennett sat across from Detective Lena Ruiz, his cuffed hands resting neatly on the table. He looked tired, but not broken. Not yet. Lena placed the evidence folder between them. "We found your wife's recordings," she said quietly. "Would you like to hear them?" He hesitated, then gave a small, defiant nod. Narration carried the moment with a slow, deliberate rhythm. The room filled with static. Then Claire's voice, pleading, trembling. "You're scaring me, Daniel." His own voice followed, rising in anger. "You made me do this. You embarrassed me, took everything I built." There was a crash, a choked sob, then the sound of a struggle. A thud, silence, Daniel's eyes closed. His composure, the clean edges of control, began to fray. His breathing grew uneven, fingers flexing as if trying to erase the sound from existence. "She wouldn't stop," he whispered. "I just wanted her to listen." Lena's tone stayed measured. "You wanted control." He looked up, eyes glassy. "No, I wanted peace." She kept threatening to leave, to take what was mine. It wasn't supposed to go that far. Yet it did, Lena replied. "You cleaned the scene, staged the fall, called it an accident." Daniel's voice cracked. "It was an accident." "I didn't push her. I tried to grab her arm. She fell. Then why delete the messages?" He faltered. Silence expanded between them, stretching tight as wire. When he spoke again, it was almost a confession to himself. "Because no one believes men like me." She had everyone fooled. The perfect wife, the victim. But she knew exactly how to break me. Lena watched him quietly, every word another nail sealing his guilt. Finally, his voice collapsed to a whisper. "I didn't mean to kill her." It was a moment of rage. One moment, Lena closed the file, and that moment cost her life. For the first time, Daniel didn't argue. He simply lowered his head, hands trembling. Outside, flashes from news cameras painted the hallway red and white, the world already waiting to hear his confession. The world woke to the headline that broke the illusion. "Billionaire husband charged in wife's death." The story spread like wildfire. Talk shows, morning papers, breaking alerts. The lake house became a symbol, the staircase a shrine to betrayal. Every photograph of Daniel and Claire now looked different, the smiles suddenly sinister under new light. Narration moved between screens and courtroom benches. Cameras flashed as Daniel was led inside in a navy suit, calm as ever. No handcuffs, just the faint air of someone still trying to control the narrative. He glanced toward the gallery. Reporters scribbling, spectators whispering, Harper crying quietly in the back row. Prosecutors painted him as manipulative, calculating, consumed by jealousy and greed. The defense countered with rehearsed grief, a husband who made a tragic mistake. But as the evidence played, the recordings, the financial trail, the photographs, his charm began to fracture under the fluorescent truth. Flashbacks intercut like flickering film reels. Daniel pouring wine at a dinner party, whispering jokes that made guests laugh. Claire beside him, smile strained, his hand on her back, gentle to others, possessive to her. Later in private, his voice colder, sharp as glass. "Everything we have is because of me." The jury watched in silence as the final audio played. The argument, the crash, the breathless stillness. Lena sat behind the prosecution, her expression unreadable. This was no victory, only inevitability. She'd seen too many men like him, mistaking control for love, ownership for devotion. When the verdict came, guilty of second-degree murder, Daniel didn't flinch. His lips curved into something faintly resembling a smile. "She'd like this," he muttered, almost proud as if still part of the performance. Outside, reporters swarmed the courthouse steps. Headlines updated within minutes. Justice for Claire Bennett. But Lena knew justice was never that clean. As the cameras flashed, she looked up at the gray sky. Rain clouds gathered again, the same kind that had witnessed the fall. The courtroom was empty now. Only the echo of footsteps and the soft rustle of papers remained. Detective Lena Ruiz sat alone, the evidence drive resting in her palm like something sacred and heavy. The case was closed, but something in her refused to let it settle. There had been 23 minutes of audio, but the file length, she noticed, was 24. 1 minute had been overlooked. She plugged in the drive, the laptop's glow washing her face in pale light. Static filled the room, the sound of a storm humming faintly beneath. Then Claire's voice again, breathless, trembling. "You said this was love," she whispered. "Love doesn't hurt like this." Daniel's reply came, lower, the sound of someone already crossing the point of no return. "You'll ruin everything, Claire. You always ruin everything." Then came the thud, the silence, the moment Lena had already heard 100 times. But this time, after a long pause, there was something faint. A ragged inhale. The microphone barely caught it. "I knew you'd say that," Lena froze. Claire's last words, not fear, but certainty. A quiet defiance. Proof that even in her final breath, she'd known exactly who Daniel was. Narration softened, folding around the revelation. Claire hadn't died begging. She died knowing. Rain began again outside, tapping against the windows like a familiar pulse. Lena closed the laptop and stood, staring out at the city lights dissolving behind the storm. The reflection in the glass showed her tired eyes, but also something else. Resolve. In her mind, she pictured the lake house, the staircase, the blood that had told the truth before words ever could. "Forensics don't lie," she murmured, almost to herself. She gathered her files, but before leaving, she opened Claire's journal one last time. The final entry stared back in looping ink. "If anything happens to me, don't let him write the ending." Lena smiled faintly, whispering, "You wrote it yourself." Outside, thunder rolled over the lake. The storm, relentless as truth, washed the glass clean, until only Claire's voice seemed to remain in the air, whispering through the rain.